Yeah? We need 2 more chairs, I think, there. Yeah. 1 more chair. Okay, great. So without any further ado, let me take the pleasure and privilege of introducing the context of the discussion. And before I invite Robert, make sure that the chairs are all well laid out. Yeah, that's another part of my responsibility. But the culture that, the discussion that we're going to have about culture is, and the reason that we've made the panel very diverse, you know, so 2 senior leaders from consulting firms, one from, you know, a firm which has been there in the space of assessments and coaching for many years, another senior consultant who works with organizations in creating cultures, is to have a variety of diverse perspectives on board, you know, and it's very interesting that I say this to you, that I think we can, even the best managed coaching programs and with the best coaches will fail, which is what we currently see happening here, if the real world where the coaching takes place doesn't match the fine words of HR. So if you ask me to tell you that I need help and I need to know that you won't secretly think, this one's struggling to make the pay grade, yeah? And a lot of people, senior leaders and the stakeholders and sponsors from my clients when they come to me is also, till about last year, was remedial. And that's how it was perceived in the organization. Coaching can work brilliantly and can help improve employee retention levels, succession planning, organizational creativity, but it can only work if the culture is supportive. If the way it is seen in the organization is future forward, is developmental, is empowering, and it's not as remedial. I was in conversation with a client last year, and beautiful organization in the digital fintech space, and they said, and I still remember the HR stakeholder talking to me in pursuit of my thesis interview. She said, Rupinder, coaching doesn't happen in a room locked behind doors. Coaching is built as a culture in conversations, in corridors, at coffee tables, in meetings, when the leader takes the onus of making every conversation a coaching conversation. And that's really what builds the culture of an organization. And fantastic people I have today with me to lead, to share, to engage with all of you on how those cultures are really built. So let me take the pleasure of inviting Robert Garcia from ICF to moderate that discussion. Can we have you on board, Robert? Vice President and Chief Staff Officer of ICF Coaching in Organization, responsible for leading the operations that enable global organizations to build coaching capabilities and develop a strong culture, a pivotal leader in coaching culture development. Robert is renowned for his strategic approach to expanding organizational coaching capabilities. His global expertise is reflected in strong partnerships across 50 countries. Wow. An executive coach, seasoned professor, eloquent keynote speaker, which you'll witness right now here. Robert's sessions are a confluence of insight and inspiration. Can I also invite Anil Kulkarni from the board to felicitate and, you know, honor Robert for his time that he's spending with us here. Anil is just coming, and okay. Can we hear a round of applause for Robert, please? Okay. As Robert makes himself comfortable, I'm going to declare it openly that we have 2 women and 2 men on the panel, apart from Robert. I'm going to be super biased in inviting the women first. So here goes Rani Beliappa, our first panelist for the session today. Rani is a partner and head learning and development and head HR for Audit KPMG Global Services. She's a seasoned leader with 22 plus years of industry experience in the talent development and L&D space across major leading MNCs, 17 years of which have been exclusively at Big Four consulting firms, EY and now KPMG, and has expertise of setting up L&D in China and Poland. Digital learning, ODA initiatives, change and transformation are words that are new, not new for her. Yes, and she holds 3 distinct portfolios at KGS. Learning leader for the platform, talent management COE leader, and head HR for GDC. And she's also a passionate advocate of women leadership. I'm going to share this for those of you who want to know a little bit of her personal side, a side of workspace. She's a fitness enthusiast, a connoisseur of high street fashion, and a classical Bharatnatyam dancer. So can we hear a round of applause for her? And can I also invite Anil to felicitate Rani, please, again? Yeah, and while I kind of continue to introduce the next women on the panel, which is Pradnya Parashar. I'm sure you would have attended, a lot of you, her session yesterday. She's the founder and CEO of Three Fish Consulting. Pradnya strongly believes in human potential for transformation. She brings rich cross-cultural and cross-geographical work experience and deep understanding of workplace behavior. Anil, can I request you to please stay here so that you don't have to, she has 25 years of experience in strategic HR, talent management, and executive assessment and coaching. And can I now request Anil to give us a token of appreciation to Pradnya? Okay. So here is the second, not second actually, the most important person as far as I am concerned, Udit Bhatia for you. Udit Bhatia is the learning leader, India learning leader for EY India, a firm that I was a part of, and my boss when I was in EY. I hold a special regard for him, a little bias there. EY India is a management consulting firm with more than 25,000 professionals with an aggressive growth agenda. In his role, he contributes to the organization purpose of building a better working world by developing talent that is future fit. With more than 23 years of experience in talent management, he's known for his strategic vision and developing various hypothesis-driven practical solutions. So those are all big words. Let me give you a real experience. My first stint of working as a learning and development person within EY, my first conversation with Udit, and I asked him a couple of questions. He didn't give answers to any. On the contrary, he started asking me questions like a typical coach would. And that's Udit for you, right? So Udit, we'll capitalize on your answers today and not really asking questions back. So thank you for being here. And last but not the least, Rajat Garg, a fantastic human being. I don't have to say anything, and there's already applause, Rajat. That speaks so well for you. Rajat is the founder of an organization called Coach 2 Transformation, a leading provider of coach training. He has an extensive years of experience in IT, strategic consulting, having started his stint with Accenture, Mahindra Satyam, and now he lives his dream of helping people realize their potential and being more self-aware about their strengths. He's also co-founder of another organization called Mirak, right, which is about leadership development and training. So a big round of applause for Rajat. And he's helped multiple organizations, TCS being one of them, to build fantastic coaching cultures. So we got a lot to hear from you too, Rajat. And on that note, over to you, the fine moderator for this session today, Robert. I leave all this to you, and we look forward to having a fantastic discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. And really, it's a pleasure and a privilege to be with such an esteemed panel. We had a great discussion. We've been talking, and I think we're very excited to be here and really talk about one of my favorite topics is creating a coaching culture within organizations. So if we can all take a seat, we're kind of cozy here in this corner. It's like conversation corner. We're all in the same corner, right? Thank you for joining me and really taking on this task. I wanted to start a little with telling you a little about what we're doing at ICF, your ICF. As you know, we have an ecosystem with 6 distinct family organizations. I have the pleasure of leading coaching in organizations. So we go out and we engage organizations that are building coaching cultures. So really providing the support that they need to grow coaching within an organization. We've partnered with the Human Capital Institute and have a study. We've done the study for, this is the 7th time that we've published the study. And we really define what it means to have a coaching culture within an organization. As a result, we're in the process of creating an assessment. We're creating benchmark reports so that we can go to organizations and really help them establish a strong coaching culture. And what that means is that the senior leaders believe there's a vision to integrate coaching into everything they do. And we feel that that's important, that coaching is available to everyone, that they get coached, anybody that's coaching gets coach-specific training. Not only the use of external coaches, and we know that organizations use a lot of external coaching, but developing coaching capabilities internally as well. And then more important, or just as important, and I think a growing area within organizations is managers and leaders using coaching skills. We feel that that's really going to integrate coaching into everything everyone does everywhere. And then obviously having a budget, sponsoring coaching, and having a dedicated line item for coaching is also an important part. So with that, I really wanted to talk about coaching as a culture, not just an intervention. And I think that we've progressed tremendously. When I started in coaching over 20 years ago, it was remedial. It was focused on, you don't want to get a coach. In fact, I remember one of the assignments, the HR head said to me, this is the last straw for this guy. Turn him around or he's up or out. And I said, thank you so much for the opportunity, but I'm not going to take the assignment. I'm not going to be successful because I don't turn anybody around. They turn themselves around and all that. I think if we think back, things have changed dramatically. And now it's really cool to get a coach. Yeah. It's the high potentials that are getting coaches. And the younger generations, our surveys and our research indicates that are not only asking for good pay, obviously negotiating pay, flexibility, so the opportunity to work in either remotely or hybrid, but they're also asking, when am I going to get a coach? Not do we have coaching, but when do I start my coaching so that I can really progress and do well in this organization? So we're really excited about that. So I wanted to kind of pose the first question to Rani. What does it mean for coaching to be embraced as a culture rather than this one-off?
Thanks, Robert. I'm sure a lot of it has been discussed in the last 2 days. And while Rupender said it's a power-packed panel, I must tell you why. The reason is we have a coach between the 2 consulting leaders who's coached us on Hogan assessments. Yeah. Nevertheless, I think it's a great question. Having traversed the journey in the last 24 years, right, where exactly to the point that at some point, if we were told that you need a coach, it was very remedial. People didn't take it with open arms, right? And today, it's very, very different. So I think, what does it really take to embrace coaching as a culture really? Is it aligned to our value system? Where people have to live it, breathe it, and live by it. Just last week, I was interviewing a Vedika graduate and, very smart girl who wanted to join, very, very aspirational. Then I said, do you have any questions for me? The girl asked me one question. Give me an example of where you have coached and failed. right? So this kind of let me thinking on two things. One is, you can't be not, coaching cannot be a one-time thing. It has to be integrated. It has to be the ethos of the organization. And you can't faff the youngsters saying we have a great culture of coaching, learning, meritocracy, and mentoring. The second thing I think is, how do youngsters realize the importance of coaching, right? So it kind of left me with those two thoughts. The second thing, I think, as we embrace it, how is it really integrated into the performance management system, where the conversation is just not on performance, it's also about potential. And I really like to bring in the concept of leadership library, where when you're building future leaders, it's also about the questions and the answers lies within the ecosystem. It's a sense of safety net, where you know you can talk to someone, you can ask questions. If you're down, somebody is there to pick you up. And that is the concept of leadership library, which coaching really enables, right? And the third thing is, we've now, if you have to really look at coaching and how do you really kind of embrace it in the system, and I can talk about it from a KPMG standpoint, we've moved away from learning on investment to learning on engagement. How do your people feel, sense? How do they experience the organization, which coaching can truly enable and bring in, right? So the sense of belonging, sense of engagement, right? Do you feel you're valued? Do you feel you have learning opportunities? Do you feel you can go and talk to someone, right? There is a sounding board. I think these are some of the things that I think I'd really like to encapsulate your question on how do you really embrace coaching as a culture and not really as a one-time intervention.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that perspective and those insights, because it really, as you're talking, it really describes the culture that's being inculcated within organizations. So, given that, I want to turn to Udit and really talk about leaders and what role do leaders play in establishing this coaching culture.
Well, one example Rupender just gave. Stop giving answers. I'll share an example. I think two of my team members are also sitting here. I just finished a program in Mumbai, and we're trying to teach people there that don't become a mama bear for your people. That you're always protecting them, you're there for them. You can guide them, but I think the biggest thing, coming back to your question, Robert, what leaders can definitely do is, first of all, they need to start believing that their people have brains, but they need help. And they need help which is full of empathy, which is full of recognition. So I think when we talk about culture, if we can actually embed this thing in the leadership ecosystem, when we train our people, is start asking good questions. In fact, EY, for example, back in 2014, they changed their punchline from quality in everything we do to now talking about better the question, better the answer, building a better working world. So everything has to start with a good question. You have to believe in that people will have an answer. All you need to do is nudge a bit. And then when you nudge them a bit and you show them the way, still not giving the answer, you will be surprised, pleasantly surprised. Actually, it takes care of a lot of other ecosystems or problems we as leaders we face. We keep complaining about attrition. We keep complaining about manpower not being there. For example, not getting approvals for hiring more people. We complain about quality. We complain about, why is the person not ready to take on the next role? In fact, the new buzzword in the industry, in the talent industry, is hire at a lower level, operate at the next level. Which means that no more you will be given partners or directors or senior managers. Can a senior manager job be done by a manager? And trust me, a job of a manager or a senior manager can be done by a manager, or a director can be done by a senior manager when you actually change the thinking of building your talent. So I was thinking about what all I can give you, but I think in the summary which I can say is, if leaders of teams can start believing in each and every individual and inculcate a culture of asking questions in the meetings, and before giving an answer, give 3 people a chance to really give ideas out of the box, you will see a culture transforming. And that's what we are also trying to change in our training curriculum these days. It's not directly coaching, but it is coaching. So that's what is happening.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, and again, that's why we're so excited. There's so much momentum to extend coaching skills, and we at ICF are making a distinction, trying to educate when we hear things like the leader is coach. Yes, but I think we need to be careful that they are not coaches, specifically if they're working with their direct reports. We have to make that distinction because professionally trained coaches have a role in the organization. The leader has a role in the organization. And certainly the leader can be a coach, a certified coach within the organization to coach other people. But as I say to my coach, for instance, I'm not having a good relationship with my boss. And by the way, that's not the case. I have a great relationship with Magda Mook. Tanya, tell her that I said that. Right, it's on the phone. But you want to have open discussions whether this role isn't for me, I'm thinking of leaving the organization. And whenever I've coached individuals or I've talked to leaders of the individuals that I'm coaching, I say, this may come up. And I would say almost everyone that I talk to and say this, they're like, I don't want anybody on my team that doesn't want to be here. So facilitate that conversation and have that process. So we need to make that distinction, so it's great. I wanted to now talk to Rajat and talk a little about, we've talked about people, culture, we've talked about leaders. What about technology? And you know, we hear about all this technology. I just came from Oman, where the entire conference in HR was about AI. Every single speaker talked about AI. So it's here. It's not going away anywhere anytime soon. We need to embrace technology. It has found its place in coaching. So what about technology, and how can it support the development of coaching, of the coaching culture?
Sure. Thank you, Robert. So for me, the mantra of a coaching culture is basic concept of everybody having access to coaching in an organization. At any moment, anytime they want to have a conversation, they should have that conversation available to them at that point. And that's doable using technology, not just through human beings. You can have as many coaches in the organization, you can have as many coaches externally, you can do manager as a coach and all that, but at the end of the day, I have a problem now. I want to talk to somebody now, right? And that's where technology can play a role. And I'm not talking about AI. I'm talking about simple technology access wherein I can put up a request and I can talk to somebody throughout the entire organization. Whoever that coach is available, wherever it is, there's a ping that goes out to everyone and says, there's a requirement for a conversation. And somebody picks up their hand and says, hey, I'm available for this conversation. That's what a technology can do for you. Yes, AI can do it much better in terms of making it easier for people to create habits and behaviors for now as AI grows in its own. But today, most of the AI bots are all about how do I make this into a habit for you? Whatever action you have promised, whatever you understood you need to do, now it has to become mindset and a behavior. The bots can do that. So we do have requirements coming in. Last week itself, we have a client who's raised his hand and said, we are looking for a coach, performance coach bot. Right? And when we spoke to them, the intent was similar, saying, if they can help them just get to their actions, right? Somebody can tell them and talk to them and have that conversation on what to work on, but somebody really needs to help them in becoming accountable. So a bot can help them become accountable. Venkatesh, this is for you. So your bot, so all these bots are doing that. And I think technology plays a humongous role in creating that culture. Second part is assessment. Are you really impacting? Technology can play a huge role in doing a level 3 assessment on Kirkpatrick's model at any time. Right? It can assess, it can give you data like this now, and something. How did you feel now? And that feeling itself can go up as an impact assessment. Right? So small things, but technology will play a huge role in creating coaching cultures as we move forward.
Wonderful. Thanks. Pradnya, and last but not least, wanted to talk, or at least ask you about, and I think you may have answered some of it, but I'm sure you will make great contributions. But how can an organization ensure that coaching is available to everyone? Yeah. We talk about democratizing coaching. We talk about, my experience is I go into an organization and I ask, do you have a coaching culture? How much coaching? And it's typically, yes, our senior leaders have coaches, and we've been doing that for a while. But how do you get coaching to everyone from frontline all the way to the senior leadership, and how can we do that?
Yeah, so of course what Rajat said is technology can enable it. I'm going to still stay in the realm of a person to person, not a bot to person coaching. And in the 14 years that we worked with clients to make coaching available beyond the C-suite, what has worked for us is a couple of things. One is start with what's the need and what's the impact you're trying to drive, right? Because coaching is one of the intervention. And I heard a little bit of Tanya's talk in the morning, you know, when you said there's coaching, there's mentoring, there's consulting, there's training. And as HR or leadership development professionals, we have all those tools or methods available to us, which we should use. And so coaching should be thought of even in that. So I think design of coaching is important, which like in any good program design, you need to start with what's the impact, what I want to drive. And therefore, what's the fidelity? It's a term I borrow from assessment. So I'm a psychologist doing assessment work. But we talk about how much granularity and fidelity we need in assessment. That requires the amount of investment that you need. So if I lateral that out to coaching, then maybe at my front line, or it's a younger person I'm bringing into the organization from a top B school, then maybe what they need is some awareness about their key strengths, maybe someone to talk about the organizational context, how they are transitioning. So have the clearly articulated goals, and maybe what they need is maybe 3-4 sessions, perhaps spread over 6 months. I mean, I won't get so much into the modularity, but once you know the design, then you can decide how much investment I'm making. And then when you take maybe to the next level of leadership and people are beginning to have a larger impact, maybe you need a little bit more fidelity, maybe a little bit deeper, maybe longer. And then when you go into maybe a senior executive level, where we are really talking about the doing and the being that somebody was, I think, talking about earlier, where we are talking about the doing being impacted by the transformation at the being level. And that's going to require perhaps deeper, longer executive coaching. So Robert, what I'm trying to say is that the approach that we've seen, we worked with clients to help them think about coaching as a strategic initiative part of the larger talent development ecosystem. And then be really clear where you want to offer, and therefore what fidelity, what budgets, what level of investment. And suddenly it starts flowing through the organization. So, for example, we have one client where we've defined at least 4 different types of coaching programs. Maybe someone for like the high potential young graduates, maybe for mid-level high potentials, maybe something else. So that's an approach that we've seen to be able to flow it down.
And I love the fact that you say strategic approach, right? It's the planning, it's top down, making sure that it's integrated into the organization. And on that, Rani, I wanted to ask about how does coaching contribute to the overall organizational culture?
Yeah. So I think, like, you know, some of my co-panelists spoke about it. I think 3-4 things that comes to my mind, right? When coaching is very integral in the system, in the organization culture, it definitely augments human equity, I would say. That means, again, going back to safe space, going back to talking, right? Just, you know, you may have a bad day, good day, you don't know where you are. So I think that is what I call it, the human equity. It kind of really enables that. Second thing, of course, like I said, how well it gets integrated into the performance management system, and you know, it's more the conversation is on potential and things like that. I think what I really like to kind of emphasize on the benefits is when coaching is built into the ethos, and we realize that's a very strategic lever for growth, right? The whole thing about growth mindset, everyone is learning, everyone is coaching, right? And it's a beautiful, there is so much of learning agility that comes into play. And it's truly a learning organization. I'll give you one example. Just about two years ago, we brought in something called reverse coaching and mentoring. So one of our mergers and acquisitions leader, right, who's a partner, we kind of, I mean, it was a free space. Anybody could coach anyone. One youngster who's just out of college, a B school graduate, started to coach the leader. beautifully two things came out. While we are really not going on the business front, more in the human space, two things. They said, one that came up as a point to pick up for the leader was on the rewards and recognition piece. Right? While you have a list of things, why don't you do it very differently? That is really something to pick up for the leader to implement. The next thing is about connects. We do very, very cliched things. We do town halls, we do quarterly connects and all of that. This young boy who had the opportunity came up with out-of-box ideas, right? And we brought in, and the business brought in the concept of, something like, speak box, many, multiple ideas actually. So the whole thing, the openness to get coached, right? The openness to get mentored really truly speaks about the learning agility, like I said. And that's one thing. And I think coaching also enables cultural sophistication. If today people are comfortable working in their pajamas at home, right? But truly speaking from a professional services organization, it's important for people to come and demonstrate those right behaviors. And how can you inculcate that? How can you kind of nurture that? Is definitely through coaching. Yeah, so these are some of the things that I would say. And of course, we have a whole list of benefits. And let's be all honest, even today, to this date, business leaders do call me, and I was just talking to Pradnya about it this morning. Very practical. They say, Rani, come please fix these 3 things. I want to see him get promoted in the next 6 months, fix it. We do cater to that need, and there's nothing wrong about it, right? Because the agenda for the leader is also to how do you grow your people, and what's wrong in coaching and in leveraging coaching. So while it's both, but I think these are some of the benefits that I've truly seen and I've experienced it.
Yeah, one of the most, and I like what you say about the multi-generations, and when you manage a team of multi-generationals, it's amazing to see the differences and how they contribute to each other. It's not perfect, there's some challenges, but I think we can learn from each other and really find a great way to be productive and engaged in the workforce. So, and coaching can help with that. So this sounds really easy. Establishing a coaching culture, quick, easy. Let's just do it, right? Udit, what do you say? Are there any challenges?
So many years.
Because it's a room full of great coaches that do great work.
Well,
so.
that is what I've been seeing since yesterday. So I was asking everybody, are you here to learn as a coach or fish for a coach?
Both.
So that is what I was asking everyone yesterday. Actually, if you ask me, as a learning head of EY India, I have more challenges than, we all know benefits of coaching. But I'll use an analogy which probably will explain you where the challenge is. In the last 20 years, I think coaching you can actually equate to a Mercedes or a BMW brand. And I'm actually not joking. I think around 5 years back, or if you ask about coaching in an organization, they'll say it's only for a few. It is not something which can be given to 40,000 people, which means how do you break that myth in the leadership team that coaching is across the culture and not just for your high potential partners or directors who will get you direct ROI. So number one challenge is that coaching has to be a thing which is for the high potential talent who will get you direct revenues, as well as you can position it in a way in an organization that it is for the entry level analyst to a consultant who goes out in the market and say, you know what differentiates this firm from somebody else is the kind of investment they do in coaching. Which brings me to my second challenge, that it is still prevalent. And I think it's just because the room is full of coaches as well as some of my peers as well. And I made a very nice friend yesterday. So we're going to talk, is when I talk to the boardroom today, when I actually present the talent priorities and everything, we are in a very different era. We are in an era of technology. Either it will eat us or it will probably enable us, which means it is very difficult to move coaching to top 5. I know some of you will kill me for that, but it is a challenge across the firm right now, that because obviously The onboarding takes on the top priority because your 45% of people are getting replaced. Your technology agenda takes the top priority. Your high potential talent and your obviously what brings in leaders into the firm takes a top priority. So coaching gets an enabling arm there. And then you have skilling, which takes a top priority because obviously if you are a large organization, you have to train 45,000 people, it takes a lot of priority. And then you have the EY or the firm brand, which takes a priority, that what is the brand of the firm in the industry. So the second challenge, which obviously every professional, at least working in the corporates, need to see is how do we bring it to the top 5? Because it is one of the enablers, right? We all are into it and we all believe in it. It's there, but it's indirect. And number 3 is, like I say, another analogy is, I was talking to Rajat yesterday, is it's becoming a matchmaking business. It's becoming so it's becoming a matchmaking business. And one of the challenge which as a learning professional, learning head I have is, I don't know the coach. I don't know the coach, which means gone are the days that I'm selecting a coach basis qualification. I'm actually selecting a coach basis my first conversation, who is being impaneled as a coach in the organization. And which means when I say matchmaking is also because the businesses today not only demanding qualification experience as a coach, but they're also demanding experience in the industry, experience in the business, specialization in, say, sales, example, specialization working back with this set of people. So they give a long list, which is very difficult to find. Once you take care of these top 3, and then you have further challenges like, you have to take care of the cost, the budgets, how do you really take it to the last person in the food chain so that everybody values it. And not only just give coaching as an ecosystem, or build coaching as an ecosystem, but also monitor and measure the productivity or the response of that. So like I said, I can actually go on and on and on. And what talent professionals today are doing is they're actually going and ticking one thing at a time. But there are top 3 or 4 things that, how do you really create coaches within the ecosystem? And I'll probably just take a couple of seconds to add one more thing. We are actually, and obviously again, some of you will kill me for this, is that we have actually at a lower level, for managers, senior managers, consultants, senior cons, we rather use the word mentoring than coaching. Because another myth which is very hard, although Rani did mention that now it is something which people are asking for, a myth which is very difficult to break is that, oh, why do you need a coach? Why do you need a coach? So at various levels, the various beliefs are being shaken. When you need it, then you run behind the talent professionals and you get it. But if you are given, if I, for example, Rajat is my counselor and he reaches out to a HR professional and say, you know what, Udit needs a coach at a manager level. And if his peers get to know, they'll say, why do you need a coach? So there are various beliefs you're breaking in the ecosystem today to build that culture. But the good news is, it is happening now. Because technology has also given us one more thing, that we are in the world of illiterates. Not everybody understands technology, which means by force or by push or by force, you are dependent on your peers, your seniors, who are not directly in that line of command to get coached on various things. And professional services firm actually is like, if you drill down, you will see around 1,500 odd solutions. So which means you have to be dependent on, I loved the session yesterday on biomimicry. Because you have to be dependent on somebody else if you really want to be coached. And you can't look up to your supervisor, just to name a few.
Great, great. So speaking of additional challenges, funding, and how do you get senior leaders excited? How do we champion the cause of coaching, and how are we going to pay for this, and how can we really secure the funding that we need for the development of coaching?
Actually, this question should be for both of them. Why they need to fund all this?
They're the numbers, folks.
We've convinced them, so we can also. We've convinced our clients to open the
budgets. Yeah, I think most of the time, the business is looking for business results. Yes. It's as simple as that, right? For any intervention, be it training, be it coaching, be it mentoring, whatever investment you do, you are looking for an ROI. Or in coaching case, we have diluted it to a level of ROE at least, saying, Rich, do we have a return on expectations here, right? But at some point, it will move on to ROI, more and more questions being asked, saying, how much are we getting back out of this? And obviously, the PRISM winners of ICF have showcased that there is a possibility of creating ROI, including GSK in the past, who won the PRISM award, and they have saved $66 million out of coaching, right? That's the kind of amazing numbers that you can save because your attrition has reduced, engagement has increased in the organization. So it's very, very pertinent to get the funding to assess the impact of coaching all the time. Be it at a very simple level of, have our EQ increased in the organization? It could be as simple as that assessment. It doesn't need to be larger than that, because the moment you increase EQ in the organization, there are a whole lot of factors that change, right? So from a funding perspective, one is that, impact assessment all throughout the journey of coaching. Whenever you start, don't start it late. Wherever you are today, start impact assessment as an organization. That is very, very helpful. The second is, if you can connect the impact to the business results, and maybe not in money terms, but in terms of saying, hey, we achieved a certain level this year because 10% of this goes to coaching, right? These many people, and you can show that impact. Again, studies have been done by all the PRISM awardees saying, when we had given coaching to this group of people, right, they got promoted more compared to this set of people. The productivity of these people increased more compared to this set of people, right? And that is direct validation of business results, because somebody who's getting promoted definitely showed better results at the end, right? So having to show that data on how it impacted the business within the organization, saying, if we are giving a coach to a particular employee in the organization, we'll charge this much to the unit. It's obviously much lesser compared to external coach, right? It will be a few thousand rupees in Indian format, but it gives the COE the power to keep on showing that we are not a cost center only, right? And the COE can run on its own, and the benefits are showcased finally. So some of these ways, and senior management has to invest in coaching for themselves.
Right. Yeah, where interestingly enough, where we find probably the most success is where a senior leader has experienced coaching. And Jeff talked about the ripple effect, right? The study about the ripple effect and how that kind of permeates throughout the organization. And he or she recognizes the value or the impact that coaching has had on their performance. And you're like, I want this for everyone. And if you have that senior champion, you get the funding that's necessary. So speaking, Pradnya, I wanted to talk a little about a business case. How do you develop a business case so that coaching is embraced, and we know that it's difficult. We talk about ROI, ROE, but how do you build that business case and get the necessary support?
And I think actually what Rajat and you talked about, I'm going to pick those same threads. What's worked for us? And so I'm going to step back a little bit. Sometimes coaching is offered because it's a fad. With thousands of people getting coaching certified, everybody talking you need a coach, coaches wanting to sell their services, suddenly it's the next best thing. Those kind of initiatives just don't last, in my experience, right? The other is coaching gets done because it's a badge of honor. Oh, I have a coach. Like I have my BMW, I have my Audi, I have a coach, I have an executive coach. That doesn't necessarily enable you to. Does it have impact on the individual? Absolutely. I'm not taking away from that. Does it have an individual coach trying and saying to an individual, you need a coach or something? Of course, it has impact on the life of the individual. It doesn't help us build necessarily the business case. Business case, in my experience, has been built with what you guys talked about and we've said earlier. What's the strategic reason why you're bringing in coaching? What are you trying to impact? And therefore, at what level and how is it designed and what are you trying to accomplish? And some of that experience or some of that impact is actually immediate. So to share just one case study, for example, of a client that we worked with some years ago, large Indian company, they went and had the audacity to go and gobble a European company, which is equivalent to their size. So suddenly double in size, right? And also, Indian ethos is what Indian ethos is. We believe in, we want to keep our people the same. We want to change our businesses, but we do want to retain our people. And that continuity, that loyalty, all of that carries a lot of value. So of course, the MD, the chairman, the CHRO business, their need was, we now have an opportunity to grow our next set of leaders, which is why we bought this company. How do we scale them? So now when you are very clear that, okay, what we are training them on, this local to global, this ability to think large and small. The MD was most concerned that now I've become so big, I'm going to get bureaucratic. But I don't want my people to lose the agility. So once those factors were clear and the level that needed to be coached, you did that, and the impact was immediate, right? Because they actually had slots, they had roles that they needed these people to scale up to in the next year. So again, they saw the impact, they could see it, and now suddenly what you know, voila. Now there is, it's not like you do it every year, but every few years the company grows, you bring in. So the business case, coming back to where I started, was gets established a little bit more clearly if we spend time upfront really engaging with the client to say, what are you trying to achieve? Rather than saying, oh yeah, let me sell you coaching. It's almost to say, what are you trying to achieve with this, and how can I help you? And once that's clear, like in any good consulting engagement, if we do contracting up front a little bit better, it allows the business case gets built, because then it doesn't seem like an additional expense, but it just feels like the right kind of investment being made to achieve the business results we want. So I know I've talked a little bit theoretical, but really, if you start there, the tactics will fall into place.
Absolutely. No, that makes perfect sense. Okay, I'd like to open it up to the audience with some questions. I think we have a question in the middle. We can get a microphone. We will only take really hard questions.
Oh yeah, bring it on.
Bring it on. We're ready.
Still good morning. I have a few questions. I limit it to two. The first question is addressed to Rani and Udit. It's all about ethos, which we're talking about. Correct me if I'm wrong. The maximum business which still all the global platforms or the coaching aggregators get is not from India. All the ones which are in India are not able to survive. They have to actually bank upon the one from US, Europe, so on and so forth. So for me, when we talk in terms of the culture, it's actually the conversations which are happening in the organization, be it at the employee level, be it at the manager level, be it at the leadership level. And Rani, the example which you gave, that is actually the main limiting factor. When it is happening at the hierarchy across and the leaders come, I want this to be fixed, and which is happening most of the time. So how do we actually counteract that in terms of, because it has to be top-down when talking of the ethos, culture, and the beliefs. Otherwise, it is just a fad, as Pradnya said. It'll be happening, we can have panel discussions of coaching culture. And Rajat, very impressive marketing spiel, that each employee need to have opportunity to get coached as and when available, as and when wanted. Will that not make it addictive, which is not the objective of coaching? We are trying to make the inner strengths realize, and so that at a later date they are able to fend for themselves. Thank you.
So there are two parts to it, right? While organizations embrace coaching and, like I said, it's a culture that's already there, right? People are learning every day, people have that safe space, all of that. To your point, there is this, let's not forget that there is this element of that agenda that has to get fixed, where you leverage coaching. So it's not is it something that's against the entire coaching philosophy? No. But I think the way they kind of come and the way they kind of ask a talent leader or an L&D leader is to say, use your coaching philosophy, leverage, take coaching as a service, but I want this agenda to be fixed. And let me tell you where, of course, and you know, for examples like we've had to kind of look at certain leadership bench, right? We needed to get X number of people get to that level where we've left, and that was an agenda by the business leader. So I really don't see it to be, I mean, I don't really take it in a negative standpoint where one side we're talking about embrace the philosophy, it has to be open, feedback is open, we want to integrate it into the system. And the other side where a business leader is trying to use this to bring in that leadership bandwidth, I think it's fine in my view. It's really not a limiting factor because that agenda also has to be met as in the organization, right? We're trying to look at our leadership even from the inclusion diversity standpoint. We want to get some of our women leaders up there. They need coaching, right? So I think it kind of intersperses where there is this organization health being measured by embracing it and making it very integral. And there are these certain business agendas that has to be met, metrics have to be shown, and that's the reality of life. That's my sense.
Probably I'll merge the two questions and then hand over to Rajat. Thanks, Sandeep, for asking that question. One thing which I'm taking back from the last 2 days, and I was just thinking about the conversations I had with Rajat and then listening to the other speakers. If you actually do a deep dive in your entire organization, in your talent agenda, you will see plethora of initiatives being run at every level. For example, in the professional services firm at a band 6, we have analysts who come from campus to people who actually move up, and then there are partners. And then we have a hell lot of data which comes to us every year, which is we get our engagement scores, get our employee engagement or your team scores. We have our, which is counseling family scores, your lead scores, which is your feedback scores. So you know the problems where they are, because obviously you have very clear problem whether there's a leader facing a problem, or there is a team facing a problem, or there is an individual facing a problem, or there is a business which is facing a problem. Because when you check your revenues, you will see, okay, fine, these are the 5 businesses where money is not coming in and they are facing a lot of problem. So how we normally look at building a culture, first I think I probably don't look at building, offering culture for all 45,000 people. For me, that is not culture. Because I will not be able to do it and I will fail miserably. But I will definitely spend time with Rajat on that, because I told him to present the TCS story to me. The second is, at every level, you need to understand where you want to invest coaching to get direct results, like Rani just mentioned, whether it is business, high potential, future partners. For us, business cases, in the next 5 years, a lot of senior partners will retire from EY. So we need to create a new skill set or new set of leaders in the next 5 years. Now, if my coaching culture is only to give the next line of partners to the firm, that's a good enough culture statement or problem statement for me. And I don't need to get into anything else. For me, if out of 700 counseling families, if there are 10 counseling family leaders who are facing a problem in their employee experience course, and I actually attach a team coach there using Patrick Lencioni and coaching conversations and help that leader how to come out of that employee experience. That is a good culture for me. So I probably, as a learning head, practicality and emotions, they play hand in hand. That where do you want the maximum impact, but you advertise it, you brand it. But like I said in the first part, coaching needs a lot of branding. And you need stories to tell. I got moved by when he shared the TCS story with me. You share more stories, more success stories. People will come back to you and say, do you know what? Can I get a coach for this? I heard you did a good job there, so can you get me a coach? Maybe that might take care of this problem for some time.
Rajat, may I just add a 30-second comment to what Udit was saying? Not only branding and communicating and marketing, but also refresh. Because a lot of our clients are year on year, right? Because there's a certain cohort that comes in. India generally is high growth and high attrition. So both require a refresh of the message also is critical. In fact, my colleague Anuva and I, we were just talking about that, because with two of our clients who've been running certain programs with us for a few years, we kind of saying we need a refresh of the message, because when it started in a certain way. Now it just becomes par for the course. Oh yeah, once I hit this level, no, I'm going to get a coach, and there's... So, and then suddenly the purpose with which that program was created, somewhere the message gets lost in the whole operational aspect of the process. And so we need to just go in and do a message refresh. Here's the what, why are we doing this? Because end of the day, it's the business impact, leadership impact, there is development, and also the fact that it's so bespoke for you, and that's what sets it apart, that it's so bespoke and tailored to you. And somewhere, yeah, just that refresh every now and then also needs to happen.
Sure. Sandeep, I thought I was marketing for all the coaches here. I'm building a business case for getting everybody work. But I don't think, even after working for 10 months, 12 months with a CEO or any of my clients, anybody has become addicted to coaching. And I meet them every month, I talk to them every month, and none of them have become addicted to saying they've not come to my doorstep yet. Suddenly I open my door like, oh, I need coaching. That has not happened. So I don't see addiction being a big problem yet in coaching. I think access to coaching is still a big problem to solve first. Yeah. Right? Let's solve that, and we will solve the next step. Once it comes to that stage that it's becoming an addiction now, and then we'll have measures and processes in place of approvals and everything that can be brought in at that point, saying, how many times are you taking coaching? What are you really doing there? Right? So, but those conversations, I think, are far off as of now in the future, because for the next 5 years, the focus should be about creating that concept of you should take coaching, right? And then we'll see what happens. Yeah,
yeah, we see, interestingly enough, the confidentiality, right? So from an organizational perspective, they're like, what is happening in the coaching, and what are they working on, and how can we know that the investment that we've made in coaching is working? So you have to, there's metrics, there's analytics around it without getting into the specifics of it. But that's always a balance, and the senior leaders are always worried about, we're spending a lot of money on this coaching, and what are the actual results, and what is the return on the expectation?
And just to add to that point, I think one thing we have to be careful, which is the biggest challenge to coaching, is there's just too much pressure on coaching.
Right. Yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah,
right.
I have given you coaching now.
It's like, why aren't you being successful?
Exactly.
Being coached.
Exactly, right? An organization, business is looking for that concept of saying, now that we have put coaching inside our system, we should now get to double of the revenues that we are doing. Right. Yeah? Right.
I
think that...
It's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of performance pressure on the coaching itself as a concept.
True.
Versus we are just not sliding back.
Right? Very true, very true.
Yeah, thanks.
Someone else, oh, right here.
We have CN.
One more question.
One of the...
Final question.
One of the things that I have taken away from all the discussion that we had a little while ago is that businesses and industry is at a crossroad. It's changing. The world is changing. Technology, markets, it's chaotic out there. And true. So coaching and the approach to coaching also requires to be changed. And I have heard a lot about how coaching should be seen by L&D people within the organization. And so I'm wondering if I'll be allowed to change the perspective a little bit and ask, how do we as coaches need to reinvent ourselves, do the branding that Udit was talking about, present ourselves, equip ourselves to actually facilitate and the shift of, the building of the culture in the new age, and also handle the challenges that have been talked about. So how do coaches here become part of this process? That would be my question.
Rani, you want to give it a shot first?
Not thinking too much at this point, but just on the fly, right? See, I'm also a buyer of coaching as a service, right? So we kind of empanel coaches. So one thing that kind of I've been asking is, while you bring in the expertise of coaching, and to your point, Rajat, on technology, right? If we have to look at this engagement for a longer period of time and optimize cost, right? Because cost is a factor, let's be honest. So what are the tools and techniques that you would complement along with your FaceTime, along with your agreed duration? So that would be critical to kind of complement yourself with just not the FaceTime that you would give, what else as aid, as supplement, what else that would complement in the overall engagement is one thing that really comes to my mind at the, I mean, as you kind of ask, of course, probably I'll give it some more thought as Udit picks up. Yeah.
So as a learning head, I can answer this question. As a talent professional, as a HR, maybe I think I'll push it to my boss. But as a learning professional, I think as coaches, we need to find our niche. We need to understand which market are we playing in. And I'll be very honest, sir, with due respect, all the coaches who come to me, they only want to train directors and senior managers and put partners, right? So they don't want to train or coach anybody lower than that, because obviously the pay scales change then. So I think in the coaching industry, which I see is going to change in the next 2 to 3 years as a buyer, which I'm assuming it will change, is there will be a market which will be a commodity market to a league market, which is, you know, there's a league of coaches who are there under the specialty heads of industry, which is still there, but everybody is getting merged there, which is there is no bifurcation, right? And the coaches need to understand that talent teams, they do have limitations in terms of budget. So if the pricing is at that level, I will only give that Mercedes to somebody who really can get me a Mercedes, convert it into something which is an even more luxurious car and give it back to me. That is the problem with the corporates. At a senior manager and below, and a manager level, at a consultant level, senior con level, you'll have to bring journeys. You'll have to bring in something which can be commoditized. It cannot be done without technology. It cannot be done, and you'll have to join hands. I asked a senior coach, can you help me generate or create 50 other coaches not like you, but somebody who's just like a manager, senior manager, has a coaching mentality. But the pricing was still at that level that better to get that coach inside and then get the coaching done. So I think the pricing models, the business models, before we reach there, somebody who's actually aspiring to become a coach in the industry, there need to be a grading scale. There need to be a grading scale that when you say a grade level, grade 1, it is not ACC anymore. Grade 1 is that I'm a coach who works with students. I'm a coach who works with young, high potential engineers who are in the age of 26 to 30, and I can get you at a cost where these guys can start behaving like 35-year-old managers. The need has to change. Another good thing which I learned yesterday was biomimicry with design thinking. I think that line which Shiva, I think, mentioned very beautifully was, are restaurants only for food? So which means is coaching only for elite. So what do you do when you have others? Which means the terminology might change from coaching to counseling or mentoring. That industry is huge. But we are still not there in terms of maturity with that market.
Well, thank you. I want to go ahead.
One thing, I think, fungibility when you bring in your service, right? For every time we just go with, at least I get kind of, sometimes I'll have to have that discussion around, no, it is 6 months. So I think a little more fungible, finding your niche, right? With supplementing with aids, technology, and of course, understanding the industry. I think these are some of the things that as we stride ahead, you could look at exploring some of this. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank our panel with a round. Yeah, we can continue the conversation, but a round of applause for the esteemed panel. Thank you for the opportunity to moderate.
Thank you.
Great job.
We are running only 15